Welcome to Kauffman Writes, the #1 creative writing show on the internet for inspiration, motivation, strategy, advice, discussion, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Today's stream of Kauffman Writes, we are on day number, I think we're on day number 97. I was like, what number? Today's episode's number 98. 98 days of streaming and writing for 30 minutes a day. I am so excited. That means the 100-day mark is a few days away. So we're going to hop into our usual 2 20-minute writing sprints, and we'll hop into our first one, then we'll take a break. But stick around because during our break, I actually have a cool writing challenge for next week to help you and myself stay accountable. All right, so let's hop into our first writing sprint. And by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, you can actually hop ahead to the part of the video, the part of the stream that brings you the most value, whether that's the discussion, the writing sprints, or anything else in between. All right, perfect. So I got this, and I'm going to throw up my screen. Now, of course, we're going to have to throw on some writer music. I will throw up Comic Elf Mix #1. All right, there's the synopsis if you want the synopsis. And as you know, if you've been tuning in lately, my heroes, the 6. So we got Scarecrow, the Pixie, the Bear, the Snake, the Skunk, and the Dragonkin are running and being chased through these Shadowlands by these weird light-based creatures. The Dragonkin has disappeared, and our heroes cannot be touched by these lights or they will be killed. So they're clearly on the run. This is a fun action scene. Let me make sure this is big enough for you to see. Awesome. And let's get right into it. All right, 20 minutes on the clock. And let me throw up music louder. Let's write now. Thanks for the love, Isabella. Welcome to the stream, my friend. I hope you're getting in some writing yourself. Isabella, that's so exciting. I love some of the cover art that I've seen for your stuff already. Oh, that is so exciting. It makes me want to work on Last Scarecrow's cover art. Oof. All right. All right. That was a great writing sprint. I feel very, very good about what I accomplished there. I'm having so much fun working on this action sequence. And when I had started it, when I had started their descent into this kind of chasm, this cavern, I determined it was a cavern. And I really was trying to figure out like, okay, what do I really want these like shadowlands to be? What do I want this part of their journey to look like? The great thing is I started off with a rough idea, and the more I write, the more the idea and the scene and the environment was coming to life, in addition to what these creatures were. Now, the great thing is I know now I have a clear idea of what it is, and I have kind of a vague idea of what these monsters are, which essentially they're like the lights, which looked harmless when they first entered, were essentially the souls of creatures who've died there. And it formed into this idea where they were attacking them and attaching to them because they wanted to be one with them. They have a very singular mindset. And when the scarecrow basically stopped them and like patted them away, they grew angry and they started circling them and they started forming into this like gigantic monstrosity, which has now been chasing them. But unfortunately, they've now been chased to the edge of another pit, even though they do see the root of a giant tree in the distance. So they see the cavern's exit in the distance. But what are they going to do? We'll come back to that in the next sprint. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Stephanie? Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. Let's see, Isabella. Oh, okay, so let me throw up my writing break. All right, so we got 10 minutes on the timer. Good time to take a break. Awesome. So Stephanie, what's up? How's the writing treating you today, my friend? Hopefully, and you're so consistent with your writing velocity. I hope you've been able to get some good stuff in. Let's see, Isabella. I started working on the cover art and I got no writing done for days. Don't do it. You're like, don't start working on cover art. But you know what? That's so exciting, right? And the cover art is very, very important. I think it's really good that you're spending so much time on it, because if you think about it, the cover art is the hook. If people aren't attracted to the hook of your book, they're not going to read it. It could be the most incredible story in the entire world. If the artwork doesn't capture their attention, they'll never read your story. So I actually think the cover art is so important and you should be spending a lot of time on it. Now, I think the difference, right? And I think that the clarification you have to set within yourself is, to what extent are you working on the cover art? And then when does working on something that takes away from writing, when does that become procrastination? Or when does that become, I'm trying to refine piece by piece, when really it's not really moving, it's not really creating any more good cover art that you really like. And I think it's trying to find that balance, right? And maybe you are like investing all this time and you're like, you know what, it's going to be perfect. But I think it's trying to find that balance and consistency within yourself. But I think we absolutely should be spending a good amount of time on cover art because it's so important for marketing purposes. 100%. I've been spending a lot of time really thinking about what I want the cover art for Last Scarecrow to look like. And I have obviously a couple ideas and rough drafts, but I'll probably come back. I'll probably finalize something more of a rough thing once I finish the rough draft, and then I'll hire a graphic designer. I might be able to do it myself because I've improved my skills so much over time. I'll probably put together a rough thing myself, and then if I don't like it, I'll hire somebody to do a professional one down the road. So let's see, Stephanie, it's good. And I'm writing at Starbucks today because I was getting too distracted at home. Good for you. I know sometimes we need a change of environment when it's like we've been like writing consistently and like nothing comes. And I do know Starbucks well. I worked at Starbucks for years, so I understand the writing vibes that a Starbucks provides. We also know the consistency, right? It's like with chains like Starbucks, you know exactly what type of drink you're going to get. you can get hopefully the same quality type of drink regardless of which location you go to. So, and they always have, some of them, like the design, have really good spaces to work where you can kind of just like get into your own like seating and vibe out and get into your own space. So that's awesome. I always recommend for writers, like if you're like struggling, if you're trying to write and you're struggling in your like home space, your home office, finding a different writing area is always a great idea. Have you been getting in some good like consistency with your writing since you went to the Starbucks? Has it actually proven helpful? Awesome. And let's see. So by the way, so something I wanted to try today, instead of talking about like a writing thing or a writing topic, I really wanted to think about the writing challenge. So for next week, when I think about my goals, I'm challenging myself to write at least 30 minutes a day. And so far, 98 days in so far, I've been pretty successful. Now, I wanted to try to find an opportunity to bring you along if you want to continue to join me in the way that I'm challenging myself. So, less in terms of the amount that the amount or consistency that you're writing, and more in terms of what is your goal for next week. So when you think about goal setting and you think about like, all right, well, this is where I want to be with my story, this is the amount of words, or this is maybe the number of times or the amount of hours I want to put in, everyone's goals, each writer's goals, is going to be different. If you are a student with a full-time job, your goals are going to be different than somebody who's like has like a working mom with children and a family and a job and different responsibilities, right? So you have to be realistic with your schedule. And then like knowing, you also have to make sure that you're including time for you to like relax, have your dating life, or have your relationship, and you have to put enough time obviously for sleep, and adding up all the amount of time that like you need to be successful with your life, and knowing with all that, then how much time is realistic for you to write. Yeah. So for next week, my challenge to you, whether you're watching this here on the live stream or if you're watching this on the replay, what's your writing goal for next week? How much would you like to write? Like, how many number of sprints are you planning on doing? Or is there like a word count that you're targeting for next week? Or is it like a page count? Or with some writers, it could be like, you know what, there's this one like idea that I really need to develop and really further. Maybe it could be an editing goal, or it could be like a brainstorming, like, okay, I'm still planning out, like really want to plan out this next section of the book in terms of like the plotting and the world building for next week. And that's what makes sense. So my question to you is, what is your writing goal for next week? Drop it down in the comments. I would love to hear it. Let's see, Stephanie. Yeah, from Starks. Yep, and it's located about 10 minutes down the road from my house. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's the easy thing with Starbucks. The Starbucks are literally located everywhere. I'm like, these days it's not a real town unless there's like a Starbucks and a McDonald's. That's funny. Let's see. So my goal, what is my goal for next week? So I'm obviously, like you guys know, like I'm going to be here every day live streaming my process regardless. I'm thinking about where I want to. I think my writing challenge for myself is less a word count with where I'm at in the process, because I know my consistency is good. My challenge is, what portion of my story do I really want to have written by next week, or throughout next week, by like, let's say next Sunday, a week from now. So for me, as clearly we're doing the setup, I'm way past the midpoint. I am at what's that, 68,000. So I'm at about 57% of the way through the story, which I've kind of guesstimated. So I want to say that my goal is to have finished. I actually think I'm about to wrap up this chapter, which is really cool. I want to have finished the nest scene. I think the nest is the next major plot point, and there's some things that are going to happen there. So that's the next major point of the story. I want to make sure that the world of the nest is clearly defined. I want to make sure that the chapters are written. And I'm asking myself if I think that I'll be able to get past the nest scene. I feel like I will. I'll feel like I'll probably be able to get the nest arc. I'm going to call that the nest. That's like a story arc. And then the part of the journey that takes place after the nest. So between the nest, the journey, which is where then leading to the graveyard of the last. The graveyard of the last is the point in the story. It's going to be a huge turning point, and that is where the last scarecrow has been tasked with getting to since the end of Act 1, all the way back in roughly chapter, I think I want to say it was like chapter 10 to 12. So roughly about 30 to 40 chapters ago, where the scarecrow was tasked with getting to find a magic power to be able to deal with the first demon. So I think I can finish the nest arc, and I think I can get into the journey getting to the graveyard of the last. So that's my goal for next week. Those are like my 2 story goals, which I feel great about. I'm so excited about my writing. I love my story so much. All right, let's see. Comments. Isabella finished the first draft, maybe 10,000. Excellent. Perfect. That's a really good goal, actually. Finishing the rest of your story is such a great goal, and especially you feel so accomplished when you finish a rough draft. I'm so proud for you. Good luck with finishing that last bit. When you get from like the 80% onwards to a story, or when you get close to a midpoint, you're like, you kind of get motivated as a writer. You're like, no, I got to finish it. Like, this is fun. This is cool. Like, I just got to like get it out. And that happened to me with my midpoint when I knew that I was about to kill off Crow. I was like, I felt it. I'm like, I don't want to write it, but I have to. And I like feel it in my writer's gut. So that's a great goal, Isabella. By the way, welcome to the stream, Lou. Welcome, my friend. Thanks for hopping by. Right now, we're actually just chatting about some writer's goals and kind of like what our goal is to write next week. I'm curious, Lou, are you a writer yourself? Is there anything fun that you're working on? And when I say writing, it could be any part of the process, whether it's like brainstorming, coming up with ideas, physically writing, or the editing or anything within. I'm kind of curious. We're kind of talking through goals for next week. Let's see, Isabella. That was the same goal as last week, but then I went, ooh, shiny. Ooh, shiny cover art. You know what? That's always the challenge, right? There's the thing is, when we have limited time, right? Because we have all our responsibilities of life, and then we're doing our writing as either a hobby, most time unless you're a published author and that's your main career, it's hard because we have to balance. We have to be able to balance all the things that we need to do with the book. Finishing the rough draft is just as important as the cover art. Doing the edits is just as important as the marketing is going to be. It's just different things, right? So it's trying to find balance. I could definitely see how like getting distracted by that is happens. It happens to the best of us, my friend. But you probably feel so much more accomplished now that the cover art is kind of like you have like a new draft for it. And some of the things that you've sent me so far, some of the ones that I saw are actually really cool. I'm eager to see what your like next iteration is of it. But finishing the rough draft, I believe in you. I think you can do it next week. Let's see, Isabella. I'm gonna have a little party when it happens. There will be hats and cupcakes. Woo! That's exciting. When you finish the rough draft, you mean? There you go. Invite me. I'll come bring you a cupcake. I'll send you a virtual cupcake right here. That's actually like something to be proud of. Absolutely. I'm like happy for you because that's a really cool moment. Let's see, Stephanie, I just finished editing part 1 of a story to where I'm fully content with it. And I added 20 pages and I broke a really long chapter into 3 parts. That's actually really exciting. So it sounds like you're I know you've been doing like a lot of, you've been balancing a lot of writing and editing. And 20 pages and broke. So it sounds like you're kind of like refining it as you're going, which is really cool. It's one of those feelings that's very rewarding when you have something written, but you know like it needs some type of work, or there's something about it that's not working correctly, and then you do the process of fixing it, and then on the other side of it you're like, it just feels better. It serves the story better, it serves the character, and it feels like it's just better put together now. So really great work. That's awesome. Really great feeling. That's I want to say in terms of Last Scarecrow, I think I felt like that I think there was 2 chapters where I wrote it during the live stream, and then on a later live stream I like was kind of like rereading it. I'm like, this kind of sucks. When I introduced the Dragonkin character, that happened to me when I introduced the last robot earlier on in the story. I like wrote it and I just did not like it. It kind of felt flat, and it didn't feel like it was serving like the point of what I wanted to accomplish, and it wasn't engaging. So that's really awesome. Really, really great. Personally, I know I always try to save my editing for the next draft, but for me, like personally, and every writer's different, everyone has their own style. For me, I'll try to reserve my actual like editing brain for the second draft. But what happens is if I'm working on it, and if there's like a section that I know just 100% doesn't work, I'll rewrite it, because I need the rough draft to at least be at a certain level, even if that certain level is at a low point, because it gives me an idea for when I go back into it for the second draft, the types of things I'll have to improve on. And I'll include you guys on the process when I get to my second draft, so that way you guys can kind of see the way that I approach editing, with both the strategic part of it and the fun part of it. From my experience, a lot of writers struggle with the editing portion of it in terms of getting it past the rough draft to the final draft, because it takes work. There's a way to make it work, but there's also a way to make it fun. And I'll show you guys my process when I get there. Let's see. And I'm something of a writer myself. Ooh, that's great. That's awesome. That's really cool. What type of writing do you do? A lot of I want to say, Lou, a lot of our writers in this community, I want to say we have a mix of, well, I'm a fan. I do fantasy, but a lot of my like portfolio is probably a mix of fantasy, sci-fi, and yeah, I want to say most of my work is really fantasy or sci-fi. Some of my screenplays and scripts have I've made some attempts at comedy, but like comedy and thriller. So I made some efforts there, but they're kind of like borderline on sci-fi fantasy genre. So, but I would say outside of myself, a lot of the other creative writers I've seen who come here as like fantasy, sci-fi, and thrillers are like the top 3 genres that I've seen. We've seen some poetry, which is cool. I'm surprised we haven't seen too much romance at all, actually. But maybe that's just not the vibe that I attract in this community. Let's see. Yeah, the rough draft. Woo! I believe in you, Isabella. You can do it. You can do it. I'm rooting for you, because I know how accomplished you'll feel when finishing a rough draft, because I know how accomplished I feel when finishing a rough draft. Like when I hit the end of Last Scarecrow, I'm gonna just take like a whole day and just be proud that I accomplished it through this live streaming process. I think I've Last Scarecrow for me as a process has been a little different than my previous works, because I've never tried live streaming, writing an entire book on camera before. So this has been a new experience, but it's kind of added like a whole element of, it's added like an additional element of fun, exciting, engagement, and challenge. I love to be challenged. So I think that's something that's worked well for me. Stephanie, now to work on part 2, the next part of the story. Like, all right, it's time to dig into it. Excellent. Wonderful. Is let's see. I forgot. Is it how many parts do you have planned for the story? Was it 3 parts? Because I think if I recall, I recall you saying that it's a really long work that you're planning, but I forgot how many parts it was that you're planning for your story, Stephanie. I write mostly fantasy, but I love writing a darker kind of story. Dark stories are fun. I haven't ventured into like the dark type of anti-hero that you explore, Stephanie, but I think it's something I would love to explore in the future. Absolutely. But I think like Last Scarecrow, when I think of like Last Scarecrow from like a genre perspective, it's definitely fantasy for sure. But I'm not really sure what classification of fantasy it is, because it like some chapters are very like lighthearted. You have the story is a bunch of like there's like cute animal characters essentially, but then there's some really like dark, like gory parts of the story as well, and it all takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. So still trying to I think I'm still trying to find what the genre it best fits into. And I'll probably make more of that determining factor after the rough draft when I start kind of thinking through like what does the marketing strategy really look like to hopefully get the book out to more people. I tend to mix genres, but could probably blanket it all under horror. Horror is fun. Horror is really, really fun. One of our I want to say one of our other creative writers who shows up, Mud Zerker. A lot of he does some more horror stuff. He's done some cool like horror stories before. We've seen a couple of screenwriters actually. We've seen some horror screenwriters, some horror scriptures, which has been pretty cool. Horror is fun. I was like, Stephanie, I don't think Stephanie I would categorize yours as horror. I think yours is more like thriller. I think if I were to really think about it. But what's interesting is as a reader and as a like in the media, I've always loved watching horror stuff. Watching like horror stuff over time. I think horror is I don't read as much horror content, but in terms of, like media, horror is kind of like an entryway into a filmmaking for a lot of screenwriters and filmmakers because horror is easier and cheaper to produce. There's a reason that there's an exponential amount of mediocre horror movies out there. It's just easy to produce. You have less, you can do it with less special effects, less editing stuff, less people. As long as you're doing jump scares and you have a story that's good enough, a lot of people will do the horror genre more. But that's cool, Lou. You should definitely in one of our streams on Saturdays, I do free readings and critiques of excerpts of stories. You should definitely send us an excerpt of your story for next week. I would love to have I would love to have be able to look into like some horror like stories. That'd be super cool. There's 3 parts. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. That's what I figured. I figured it was like a 3-part deal. The parts are childhood, adulthood, and the present. That's actually that's interesting because then I'm like assuming and I'm thinking that in like a 3-act structure type context, and that actually makes sense because the trauma technically starts in the childhood. The adulthood is probably like the fun where you get to have the fun with the story, and the present is where the actual climax and the things come together. The characters have to learn from their childhood and the adulthood, or maybe even if that's the future. That's interesting. I actually like how you're playing around with time. I think doing time jumps in stories can be really fun. It can be challenging. It can be challenging for sure because you have to make sure that you're solidifying the you have to make sure that you're solidifying the present moment. The present moment, even if you're not in the present, you always have to be solidifying where the present moment takes place so that way readers don't get lost. And it's hard. I don't think I'm familiar with any stories that do time jumps just off the top of my head. No, I love time traveling. Time traveling is a great concept. But I think for like media, I think one of the things that probably did time jumps almost the most effectively was an older movie, Memento did time jumps. Kill Bill, excellent example of a movie that does time jumps very, very effectively. If you haven't seen Kill Bill, as like it is super, super graphic, but it's great storytelling. Great at doing time jumps. A little bit of an older one now, but definitely a classic. All three parts bad are for my main character. No, yeah, that's good. That's good with the focus. Yeah, that's really awesome. And it's great that you've done so much like plotting and planning. So I'm sure it's probably going to be really effective. And it kind of sounds like with your style that you write and then you edit as you go. So that way you're kind of able to keep that consistent pace as you do your storytelling. And I think that's all right. So Stephanie, that's actually like the same challenge, same exact challenge that I face with Last Scarecrow when it comes to the characters and the animals. And I'll give you like the perfect example of what I'm going to do, right? So in my story, The Last Scarecrow, the first third of it, there was 2 to 3 characters, maybe the fourth character with the robot. Once I hit that 30-40% mark, I introduced anywhere between 10 to 30 different animals. There's between 10 to 30 different animals and around the 30% mark of the story, all the way to about the 60% mark, where I've now dropped down to about 6. Now, I recognize that is a lot of creatures and that is a lot of characters, and it's hard for me to keep track of. During the Coliseum, I like killed off random characters left and right. I like put random animals in there. I'm like, I know things need to happen, but there's a lot to keep track of. So like I know that in the back of my mind that when I go into my next draft that that's going to be a focus. And for me, when I think about something like that, because that's essentially that's world building and character development. So when I go into that work on the next draft, I'm going to make a list, every single animal that I've introduced, every single animal that I've set up, and I'm going to ask myself which animals are necessary for either proving a point, serving the plot, or helping to build the world. Do I have too many? Do I have too little? I'm going to do that for every single animal. Now, if I have a bunch of like supporting animals, like they have like, I only talk about them for maybe half a page or a page, the amount of time I'm spending to them is going to be less. Then for something like that, they get one defining trait that makes them stand out. But if there's something more like the rabbit character is going to get more development, then I'll spend more time investing in all of them. But I'm going to have an actual strategy for that problem because I know that's a problem that needs to be solved in the second draft. I'm going to have fun with it because I enjoy character development, and I'm going to really focus on like what are the types of animals that I find fun engaging? What are the types of like character arcs that like I've either read in other stories, that I've seen in movies or television just throughout my life? What types of character mentalities do I think would be really fun to explore? And I kind of use that as a backdrop. And my story is done, so I'm full in editing mode. And with the second book, I'm just focusing on writing right now. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I like completely forgot that you were all done. But that's right, because you've been working on it for a while too. Yeah, that the editing, the second draft, the editing mode of it is such a different it's such a different beast. For sure. It's really a different monster. My, my story is done, yeah. This is probably the first time in my life where I'm only focusing on one project. Usually, actually, in the past, I've always been focusing on multiple. And I think that that's probably a little more due to my time commitment, that I have a little less time than I had in previous parts of my life. But everyone has their own system, and that's awesome. And I'm actually completely agree with the idea of like working on multiple books in the series as you're kind of editing one and getting the second one. So then by the time the first one's ready to be published, you'll have the next books at a certain draft or a certain level. So you have everything mapped out correctly. It's awesome. Good luck with the process, Stephanie. Definitely really good luck with it. I like continue to be impressed with your consistency and like the volume of stuff that you're doing. That's so inspirational for me. Let's see. The book is now 1,041 pages long, and I'm shocked it's this long. I mean, like, that's what happens, right? I'm shocked that Last Scarecrow is as long as it is. I think even after like the free write of Last Scarecrow, I'm like, all right, this book's going to be like 100 pages. And like, I do have my like word, I have my the formatting of it, I have it blown up for the live format. But I think when I shorten the format, actually, I'm kind of curious. I actually haven't checked in a little while. I'm actually kind of curious. So I'm going to save this. I'm curious what my actual page count is right now. All right. So we're going to make this 12. And we'll just do Times New Roman just to see. So Last Scarecrow is 68,000 words at about, what's my page count? I need to switch to this. Where am I? I'm going to say, so my actual 68,000 words at about 255 pages. Man. And I was like, that's like crazy for me. I didn't expect it to be there. Oof, man. All right, perfect. Yeah, good for you. And good luck with the editing process. Like that's a huge amount of editing that needs to be done. But it sounds like you have a really good system. So you're just like staying consistent with it. That's so awesome. Keep it up, my friend, because I know I know how much work that takes. All right. So this is a good point. With my story back up, it is time to reset our timer. Time for writing sprint number 2. But before I hop back in there, just a quick shout out. Are you enjoying the stream? Don't forget to follow and subscribe. That way you'll be alerted when I go live daily with these inspirational writing streams and to kind of, as you can see, my process. And then I also come out with weekly writing videos and shorts to help you become a better writer. And subscribe will alert you when these are launched. All right, wonderful. So let's hop into writing sprint number 2. Feel free to join along as I see if I can get my characters out of this chasm. All right, so music back up. And let's see, I think we'll go. I think we're going to go this one then. All right, we'll go get this one. All right, 20 minutes on the clock, and that's right. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. All right. Whew. Okay, wonderful. That marks the end of that writing sprint. Once again, one of those moments where I knew I needed to get to the end of that chapter. Man, what a chapter that was. I definitely took them through quite a journey to get there. That says like I have to go find. So follow the glow. That entire chapter, right up the nose. She seemed to ignore it. So that entire chapter was them entering the Shadowlands as they like traveled through that entire like dangerous like pit like area, which really was like it felt like its own like unique world. And they travel through that area only to find that they are approached and technically saved by Gold Scales, right? Who was found by the Red Dragonkin, Red, who flew ahead, and that they are with a cloaked writer, the writer who is essentially actually one of the hags, who's very, very creepy. Basically says a word and changes the whole shape of the area like it was a spell, and then asks them, "Why did you come in the back way?" I thought that would be very fun. It almost like it like they were in like extreme terror, like they were going to die. It looked like Skunk was at the end. It felt like they had been abandoned, and really, it was just an illusion. So I thought that was actually perfect, which finally means that chapter 32 will take us to the nest. Perfect. Wonderful. I'm so happy with the progress I made. Excellent. So we will get to explore the nest tomorrow. On the next writing sprint. All right. So I hope you were able to get some good work done on your own writing and development yourself. That was very successful. As I'm wrapping up the show, once again, remember that tomorrow is the next day of my writing sprint, the next day of the stream. I'll be here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Come join me. And by the way, if you haven't checked out my new video yet, Writer's Block is a Lie. There's the, oh, I should probably like throw that up. Here we go. If you haven't checked out my new video yet, there's the thumbnail for Writer's Block is a Lie. And here's this. So you can find it through my Kauffman's Corner YouTube channel. You should definitely check it out. It's my newest video. And I'm telling you, this is one of the best videos I've done of all the writing videos. It goes in depth through talking about, I'm doing a whiteboard session and I give specific strategies and ideas to help you, whether you're a visual writer or whether you're an audio writer. It gives you different strategies for you to see and hear. So go check out that video because it will definitely provide you a lot of value. And let me know if this format really helps you or not. Awesome. And once again, also don't forget to tap that like button on your way out. Let me know that you got value out of this stream, and we'll keep doing this. I had fun. I'll be here tomorrow. And that's all that I got for you today, writer friends. Remember, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow.